Hi, welcome to Matt's Garage. We're continuing on the electrical installation on the 1972 Scout. Things are changing, things are evolving, so I'm going to walk you through some of those changes. Also, have you guys seen my dimmer switch? Because the last time I saw it was when I was with you, so... Did you steal my dimmer switch, bro? You sure? I've looked everywhere. I feel like I'm losing my mind. All right, let's talk about this harness. Last episode, I talked about this nifty, handy dandy, what do you call it? Bulkhead connector, 22 pins. And it goes right in there because I have way more circuits than that, so I can't do it. So what I did was I cut it down, and I'm still using it as a bulkhead connector, but I basically took a piece of that rubber that I talked about in a previous episode, the hydrometer rubber, and cut a pattern into it and put it behind there. And then when I have my full loom coming through that firewall, I'll loom it and then put like a sealing wrap around it. Some of my previous planning is coming in handy. I welded in some attachment points there, so you see I'm going to run my engine loom across the back there, and then my clutch master cylinder is running on another wire holder underneath that. Great. I put my dash in because I wanted to see if my ILX W650 Alpine unit, which is going to go right there, whether it clears the... Let's see if I can get in there. Is it... Whether it clears, and there's just enough room between the harness and the face of the dash, so that's good. Electrical, well, let me go to the tripod mounter. All right, since I talked about the double DIN receiver, this is the depth of this double DIN CarPlay compatible ILX W650. Reviews are generally good. It's not as big as some of the other units, but it's definitely sleek looking. I've got two cameras, a front and a back camera on order, just waiting for those to come. Got to work that in because those will have to get into the cab through that firewall. Also, the downside to that stereo is it doesn't come with like mounts. You know, not with the old school, you would just get like a mounting box for any stereo, but that one you have to buy the kit separately. I think it's because people generally are reinstalling their stereo into a car that had a double DIN stereo. So I gotta make brackets for that. Great, more fabrication. But I haven't cut the hole out, so I'll just do it when I cut out the hole. Maybe I'll bend when I cut yeah, I'll just bend it and turn those into the mounting brackets. That might be pretty strong, actually. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. Anyway, thanks for the idea. So, where am I at with this thing? Yeah, okay, so I brought a lot of the wires through the firewall, then I pulled them back out to do the whole grommet thing. You want to do your grommet first. The tough part is you never know how much grommet you're going to need. Like, you always need more, but if you go too big, then you're going to have a big gap to fill when you're done because you don't want all that engine stuff coming into the cab. So I'm pretty confident since I had all my wires through there that this grommet's going to be about the right size. If it ends up being too small, I'll just pop another hole in the firewall. But for now, that's looking like it's going to work. A lot of guys say, Matt, you don't show us enough detail about the stuff you're doing. And I'm like, who wants to see the detail? I mean, I talked to you guys about it, but like, okay. As I said, I put my dash on and checked the clearances. Everything's good to go. Now I get back in the cab, take my screw gun, and while only mildly scratching my brand new steering column, take my dash back out. Do you really want to see this process? Then I put my dash under my truck where it belongs. The other problem with filming everything is you're always bent over stuff. So there's always some plumber's crack going on. It's like impossible to edit out. it's the nature of the beast. That's why, you know, you see these car shows, and they're always like, they're always on a stand under the car, because they don't have to, there's no crackage. It doesn't help that some of the wires are different lengths within the group. These are the longest wires in the headlight group. Then I push them through the firewall, and then I reach around, try to find those wires that I've already got through there. You guys starting to see my point? Who wants to see this? I'm getting caught up on my antenna wire here. Just feel like I'm wrestling with a spaghetti monster on YouTube. That's like what this feels like. Okay. That is the headlight group. So I'll now take this and drape it and kind of just coil it up over here. So this is my headlight group. And then you can zip ties are so cheap, you can just zip tie it to keep it from uncoiling, but so that's like how I do my groups. The hardest group is the tail group because it's the longest and it's got the most differential strands, and it needs to be routed down and obviously to the back. But that's how I route my stuff. Now let me show you my internal routing. When I was doing all my mods, I went ahead and I welded studs in to the cowl, and so I've got two sets of these 2-inch hangers there. 2-inch wire isolators. So I do two because one set's for the wires, one set's going to be for the vent tubes that I got going on, and it still gives me enough room to get to my. It gives me enough room to get to the fuse cover. So just putting it back on is a different story. We'll deal with that later. And then I've got the groups running where they need to go. Like I could tell this is the ignition group. And then my headlight switch groups over there. All my instrument cluster I put over there because I'm snaking it up over the steering column. This is a standard sort of GM column, but this steering column didn't come with the kind that the Kwik Wire kit came with. So I'm going to actually cut those and use weather pack connectors for the column connections so I can quickly take it apart and disconnect it. I'm going to generally do that everywhere I can where it makes sense. Obviously the ignition has its own pigtail, so I don't need to worry about it, but everywhere else I can put a connecting piece, I will. You can see I've ran my dome lights through the cage using the welding wire. So I've got them coming out at the center of each cage. I try to get the rear speaker and subwoofer wire through this, but it's just too constricted in there and it's too crowded with all the other wires, so it did not work. Hopefully I didn't damage any of these wires trying, but that's okay. My main concern was just not having a lot of exposed wire running on here, and that stuff's going to go under the carpet, so not my ideal, but gonna do it. A couple things I realized I needed. Not needed. I don't need any of this. This is all a luxury. A buzzer kit to remind you to keep the headlights when your headlights are on. This is like a Scott Drake, one of the Drake brothers. Yeah, Scott Drake product. It's a Ford kit, but that's just a wiring color. It'll work on anything. And I don't know about you guys, if you have a classic vehicle, I've let the battery die at least 4 times on this Scout, so that's a helpful addition. Other stupid little things, right? Like the if you get a DIN receiver or any receiver where the USB port's on the back, you don't want to be reaching around under wires with the, for your iPhone connection. So I just ordered an extension. It comes with an extension, but it's just an extension cable. It doesn't have any way to mount it to a dash. So I bought a dash-mounted extension cable. It's not expensive. It's just another thing you gotta buy and then wait for, especially with the shipping times right now. I do bust out my instruction manual for the Kwik Wire, and I also earlier had gone and I'd sort of figured out, okay, what's the engine number, wire number, what does it go to? So I took notes on a lot of the different systems, and I made notes for myself like, hey, I also need to make room for switches on the dash. So I'm gonna have the air compressor switched. I'm gonna make a switch to make the cameras go on, to trick the stereo into thinking the cameras, you're in reverse basically, so the cameras go on. And then, what is my other switch? Oh, just electric fan override, so I can turn the fan on if I want to. I might just make a fuel pump kill switch override in case, I don't know, just for safety. I was gonna try to wire a fuel pump kill switch that's hooked up to the oil, this special oil pressure switch. Special, I mean, it's a GM product or Delco or somebody. But it's complicated because one side's normally closed and one side's normally open. So the way the ECM on fuel injections work is they prime it and then give it power when you're giving it the beans, and then they leave it on. But so when you do this switched version, you're basically running the ECM power to one side that's normally closed, and then the other side normally open, you got to hook up to your crank. So when you're cranking, the fuel pump is sending fuel, and then when you go to run and you've got pressure, then that normally closed opens, and then your ECM signal will open it up. But I'm just wondering, like, is it, what's the scenario? Like, I get in an accident that I'm so damaged in that I can't shut my fuel pump off. I don't know. I'm thinking it through. I might just get it running the way it is and splice that all together later. So these are the things you got to think about. And then I think I mentioned for connectors, I'm using weather pack connectors. Also, none of these electrical kits are custom. Like, they're all universal to some extent, even if they're vehicle specific, because different vehicles had different features. And like, this is the wire I've pulled out so far that I don't need like a neutral safety switch. It's a manual, so I don't have a neutral safety switch. I could fabricate a clutch safety switch like the TJs had, but freedom, bro. And then let's see, what else did I cut out of here? Temperature sender, oil sender. See, the speed height gauges came with all these, so these are wires that I'm basically pulling out of my harness. And then other wires like dimmer switch, right? The dimmer switch runs back down the headlight switch group, looped around and came through the column group to the dimmer, which makes sense, right? Because a lot of people's dimmers are on their column, but mine's on the floor, so, which is right by the headlight switch. So I pulled that out entirely and I'm just running it direct to the dimmer switch, right? So you gotta do that. You gotta figure out where your circuits are going, put the wires in the right place, and then hanging them up on those rubber lined wire clips. It really helps, okay? I mean, and especially I got the big ones, so you can just fish stuff through. You're not wrestling with the harness. You don't want to make this harder than it already is. I have a multimeter. It's a Craftsman sort of. It's not like a cheap one, but it's not. It's between 25 and 40 bucks basically to your door, and I think it's a great multimeter. This is my second one. I kind of broke the other one. I also have a test probe coming that can put power into the system. That's a luxury. It's a Power Probe 3. They're like 90 bucks for the kit. But what I like about that is I just have it hooked up to the battery far from the vehicle, and I can put power to things and test circuits out. Whereas with this, I'd have to actually supply the power and then test it, and it's just far superior. So let's talk about starting, right? So a couple things are getting in the way of me starting. First, I gotta finish the dash mod. So I gotta cut out the DIN receiver. I gotta put in the indicator light holes, but I'm waiting for the indicator lights to come. And then the USB extension hole, I'm waiting for that to come. I also want to put my cell phone mount on there. I get this happy guy here. Hi, I'm Matt. Welcome to Matt's Garage. Today we're gonna do it. So I want to permanently mount that, and then I figure whatever like nuts I put into the dash I can use for future phone mounts or whatever. I just need to maybe do weld nuts or something. So once I get the dash cut the way I want, then I can do the body work. Now, thanks to Peter, the guy with the FJ40, and we're trying to figure out when to film this thing. I know I keep promising it, but sweet FJ40. Anyway, he told me that the Bondo sucks for that stuff. Well, he said it's hard to sand, and so he's like, use the Rage Ultra, one of the Rage products. I agree that the Bondo is hard to sand, so I'm hoping the Rage is better. I've got a gallon of that underway, so I'm waiting for that to come. I got to get my butt to the paint store and buy some more paint, and then I can put the dash in. So that's one thing. I guess I could technically start without the dash done. But there's also, oh my God, I got 9 days left until we get the keys to the new rental house. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna keep trying. We'll get as far as we get. If we can bump it over, that's great. If we fire it up, that's even better. But we're gonna keep trying, and I will see you next time on Matt's Garage.